Melochim Halacha Daled in the Rambam. Benoyach sheberech is Hashem. Benoyach who blessed Hashem, that means the opposite, or he did idol worship, or shebal eishes chaveroi, or he had a relationship with his friend's wife, or shehorag chaveroi, or he murdered someone with his gaya, and he became years potter. He's not liable. Ben Yisrael, if he killed a Jew when he was a goy, Shabbat Eishes Yisrael, or he had a relationship with a Jewish woman, with his gaya chayev, and he's liable. And he's given the death sentence al Ben Yisrael, if he killed a Ben Yisrael. And we give him, however, we give Horganosim is with a sword, and we choke him for having had a relationship with a Jewish woman, because the law has changed, meaning he has a name, the law of a Jew, but he had a relationship with a Jewish woman who was married, and therefore he's liable for the death penalty. A goy usually is judged with a sword. That's his death. The death penalty is only one. By Jews, there's four categories. Halachically, the strongest, the most serious, worst category is skila, stoning, sreifa, burning, which means pouring molten lead down his throat. Then you hereg is with a sword, and chenek with choking. But if somebody has a relationship with a Jewish woman who's married, another Jew, he gets chenek, and therefore Ger had a relationship when he was not Jewish. He became converted. He is liable for the death penalty that a Jew would be liable for. The case of Mishnah cites Sanhedrin 71b. Chanina said, Ben Noach, sheberech Hashem, a non-Jew who blessed Hashem, as we said, it's the opposite, shechir v'gidev in his gaya, and then he converted potter, he's not liable, shenishtana dinoi. His law has changed, and therefore his death has changed. And the Bryce is brought that Ben Noach, that struck another non-Jew, or had a relationship with another non-Jew's wife, and he converted, he's not liable. If he did so to a Jew, he became converted, he is liable. The more questions, why can he, when he kills a Jew, or he had a relationship, he's liable. When we had the same thing occurs with a non-Jew, we say he's now a different person. The more answers, in order to be not guilty, or not liable entirely, you have to have both the law and the death change. Now, when a goy, he killed a goy and he became converted, he's not liable. He's not free totally from death. And he killed a Jew while he was a goy, then his death changed, but he's liable totally. The more questions that explains the murderer, because always a non-Jew's death is with a sword, by the sword. But somebody has a relationship with a married woman, the death changes, because when he was a goy, he was liable by the sword. Now it's choking, and the Gemara answers that since the sword is a more stringent death than choking, it's considered inclusive, and not called that his death changed. Because the Mishnah cites Rashi, that the judgment changed, because a Ben Noach is judged with one witness, with one judge, and he doesn't need warning. And when he's a convert, now he has to go before the Sanhedrin of at least 23, and you need to have warning and two witnesses, and the death has changed. Ben Noach is with a sword, Yisrael, who, God forbid, does the same thing regarding Hashem is stoned. And when he becomes converted, he would be liable for stoning. And since the judgment, fashion of judgment, and the death judgment is different, he's not liable. And if he struck a goy, he killed a goy, or he had a relationship with a non-Jewish wife while he was a goy, he's not liable, because a goy, the law is he would be liable for a knife, and as a Jew, it has changed the law, and his death has changed, because that's why he's potter. But if while he was a goy, he killed a Jew, or he had a relationship with a Jewish woman who was married, and he converted, he is liable, because his law, the judgment has not changed, because also Yisrael, who killed another Yisrael, had a relationship with a Jewish woman, is liable for death. And even though that the way it's done by a goy is with one witness and one judge without warning, and Yisrael you need warning as well, still he's liable for death, because the death has not changed, because it's included in the Saif. The Gemara continues to question why, if he has a relationship with a Jewish woman, a married woman, when he was a Ben Noach, he's liable. His death has changed, and his judgment has also changed. And because the death has changed, because when he's the death penalty for a married woman by a goy is not a sword, by Yisrael it's choking. The Gemara answers, there's no change between sword and now is choking, because it's more lenient. Only when it's more stringent is it considered is inclusive. But somebody who cursed, or then he's liable he was liable for sword, and now he's liable for stoning. Therefore, it's not included in sword. The Rambam was careful when he wrote, Ben Noach, who blessed Hashem, or he did Avodah Zorah, or he had a relationship with his friend's wife, he's not liable, because of all of these, the law has changed. And even though the Gemara doesn't mention what happens if he served idols, still the law would change. A guy is judged with one witness and one judge without warning, and the death is a guy is with a sword, and a Jew it's with skilo. When he killed a Jew, or he had a relationship with his wife, and he converted, he's liable, because then his death has not changed. Because chenek is, or saif is for murder, and that remains the same. Because the Mishnah argues you can't explain that was changed. It's talking about someone who blessed Hashem or served up idol worship. Since it was changed the judgment has changed his death, because it was written after he wrote he killed a Jew. And you can't say that it's talking about where he killed a Jew. The reason that he's liable for the death penalty is not because it wasn't his punishment didn't change, but because the death didn't change. And he concludes the tzorach, because it's mentioned in the wrong place. The Lechem Mishnah explains that the Rambam writes that the law was changed after he writes that he is choked for having a relationship with a married woman, to clarify the reasoning of the judgment. That he wants to explain the words of Hanina, the convert who had a relationship with a married woman when he was a non-Jew, then we're talking about a Jewish woman, he is given the death penalty of choking, even though By Ben Noach, the death is with a sword. By if you would have had a relationship with a betrothed girl who was engaged, and the Brisa in Sanhedrin 71b says the liability is skila. But if they judged him after she's no longer a nara, then even by a Jew the law is chenek. Rabbi Yochanan corrects the intent of the Brisa is that even after she becomes a bogeres, she would get skilo. And why then is a ger? You say that after he converts, he gets chenek and not the sword. Rambam explains that by a ger, changing the din means that as a Jew he has to have two witnesses, Sanhedrin of 23, and warning. But a nara that committed adultery and then she became a adult, by Bogeret, her law hasn't changed. Every Bas Yisrael has two witnesses and warning in Sanhedrin of 23. Since the way of judgment wasn't changed, she would continue to get skila according to the Rabbi Yochanan. And since a Ben Noach, the judgment was changed, therefore he's given the more lenient death of chenek instead of saif. And that's what Tosfos writes. And Rabbi Yochanan is the opinion that since it didn't change the girl's judgment, she remains with skilo, and the way of judging her. And so the Ritva says, Ishtana dinoi means that to begin with he had to have a sword, and now he's converted, he gets chenek, like he would have a relationship with her now, and therefore he has to get chenek, but he's liable in any case. Just like the nara would be liable in any case, that unless it's changed, the law would change. The Chido cites the name of Chaim Abulafia, Maram Geranti, that they also explained it in the same way. Tosfos cite from Yevomis, why Gerim today have afflictions. Hanina b'noi shel Rabbi Gamliel Omer, Hanina the son of Rabbi Gamliel says, Ki lo kimu sheva mitzvahs, they didn't keep the 7 commandments they were supposed to when they were non-Jews. This is the opinion that they're going this Gaia, and they are therefore have afflictions or Yisurim for a different reason. So you say it could be that the words of Hanin that Benoach who blessed Hashem and it converted is not liable. That's according to Rav Yossi, that a ger who converts is like a newborn, and therefore he's not punished on what happened earlier. And they question, according to this, why if he killed a Jew or he had a relationship with a Jewish woman who's married, he's liable even after he converted. And the answer that the discussion about a ger who killed a Jew or had a relationship with the Israelis discusses if he's liable by man. And in Yevomis, they're talking about Dinei Shomayim. And Mashor explains the intent of Rabbi Yossi, that a ger is like a newborn child, is only regarding a punishment from heaven. But by man's ruling, he would be liable in any case. And he says that this is what it says in Chuvas Beis Yankiv. The Peirush HaMeir concludes that the Tosfos opinion would be, according to Rabbi Yossi, Benoach is poter midinei shamayim, but he did as a goy, and regarding man's laws, it depends whether or not the judgment way of judgment and the death is different. He cites the Chaim Sha'al, that the Mari Bar David brings the Rishona in Bereshis Rambam that Avraham Avinu was afraid maybe he sinned with Avodah Zarah before he recognized God. The Mishnah Melech questions the name of Arash Yafa. He didn't know Avram, the ger is like a newborn child. He's not liable what happened before. The Divrei Emes argues that only Rav Yossi is of the opinion that a ger is like a newborn child. And the Medrash that says Avram Avinu was afraid, it could be that it disagrees with Rav Yossi. Chido argues that Rav Yossi is the Halacha, and everyone knows that when he converts, he's like a new person. The Chido questions on Tosis. The B'dini Odom, we don't say he has a new rule. The Tosis themselves are of the opinion that a ger who converts is like a newborn child, even regarding marriage and inheritance, which has to do with human situations, not that of heaven. And the answer is that maybe the intent of the Mashor and the Jews Beis Yaakov, the Mishnah Melech, is only to say, like in Sanhedrin, that if he killed a Jew, he's liable b'dinei Odom, only if the law changed and the judgment changed. According to Yossi, the ger is totally like a newborn child, even by b'dinei Odom, he would be potter. In the Machloikis, in Yevomis, is according to the one who says that a goy is punished on the 7 mitzvahs b'dinei Shamayim, because they're more stringent than many situations. He would not be liable b'dinei Odom, and he's liable from heaven. That the obligation to fulfill heaven's requirement is greater, and therefore Jesus says he gets afflicted. Me'ez Hashem, they punish him, and he transgressed on the 7 mitzvahs when he was a Menoyach. That's only from heaven. In the din of Rab Chanina, that if he blessed Hashem, there is a Menoyach and he converts his poto, is even according to Rab Yossi that he's like a new infant. And also to the Kana Kamo, the Menoyach is punished b'dinei Shamayim. Still b'dinei Odom is poto, just like it was changed his law, so was changed his death. And what the Rambam says that in the Brisa, that if he had a relationship with a married woman and he converted, he's liable. He's not like Rabbi Yossi. The Halacha is according to Rabbi Yossi that he's like a newborn child. The Rambam codifies the Halacha that a Ben Seir HaMeir, that if they conclude that he's liable for the death penalty and he fled, even if he's an old man, he would get skila, because when he was worthy of being killed when as a Ben Seir HaMeir, that everything, when you complete the law, he is like he's dead already, and therefore he's considered a dead person. Chido cites that the Marash Al-Ghazi questioned why the Rambam here doesn't say a Ben Noach who blessed Hashem in his Gayer is liable for that reason, if they concluded the law that he's liable for it. Yuve Alochas answers that it's different to ger. The b'dinei Shamayim is potur. He's not liable like Tosis, because that's the halacha the Kuli Tanoi, and that's what Ram is of the opinion that Ben Noach, even if it was concluded the law to be killed when he converts, he is potur. Chido comes up with a novel idea, or we say that we have many laws where we find that when he converts, he's like an infant, is only regarding family or inheritance. That he has no longer any relationship to anyone, or he's not transgressing on living with someone who's a relative. He proves it from Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah. The ger, the Rambam says, the ger who converts is like a child who was born, but he says that it's different when he killed a Jew, or he had a relationship with a Jewish married woman. He's liable, not because of Gersh and his Gayer, but that's only, he's like a newborn child, is only regarding inheritance and relationship. But by man's laws, it doesn't say that he's not considered he's considered a newborn child. The Chido concludes, according to Tosfos Yishonim, a ger who converted is like cotton shenoted is only by something that he's not liable for death, but not to say he's not liable at all, because from the moment that he killed, he's considered a dead person. We don't say that he's like a newborn child. And when the law was concluded before he was converted, he should be considered a newborn child. The Rambam is of the opinion that when he's converted, the liability of death remains, and we don't say he's a newborn child except when the punishment has changed, and therefore the Rambam would say that if the way of judging and the death penalty has changed, he would not be liable.